What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you, and another one that was on our radar for this week, and a band that we've definitely been over on here. We are going to go over the latest offering from Ingested, The Tide of Death and Fractured Dreams. This comes out on the 5th of April on Metal Blade Records. This band formed in 2006 in England. This is their 8th album overall. We actually reviewed their last two, Where Only Gods May Tread and Ashes Lie Still. And honestly, I've been listening to this band since their debut, surpassing the boundaries of human suffering. And, I mean, over the years, we've seen this band plenty of times. Yeah. Actually, they played in our hometown once, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they did. Yep, I was there.
And describing this band's sound, I mean, this band kind of, I don't know, lurks somewhere in between brutal death metal, slam, and deathcore. Like, it's kind of all three of those things wrapped up into one, to the point where people argue this band's status in terms of, like, what genre they are all the time. Like, legit, if you bring this band up to, like, a brutal death metal fan, they'll just call them deathcore. But if you bring them up to a deathcore band, they might actually own them just because they want a good band in their ranks, but they'll call them death metal too. And yeah, slam fans, I don't know. I think they call them deathcore too. I don't know. Again, this band's status is just kind of all over the place.
I've been into this band roughly since 2014, 2015, somewhere in there. We can't quite pinpoint the date, but ever since really seeing them live the first time, I was like, yeah, they're pretty good. And I know they get lobbed into the slam category, and arguably I'm not really a big slam fan, but Ingested has kind of been one of those bands where it's not quite that. Mostly because vocally, he's not just pig squeals, and I'm stoked on that.
Yeah, and, you know, it's not just slam riffs, it's not just deathcore breakdowns, and it's not just blast beats and brutal chugging. It's kind of, again, like a mix of all three, so their status, again, just kind of all over the place. But they kind of work as like a bridge between all of those genres.
Yeah.
So, you know, props to them on that one. So I actually really liked their last one, Ashes Lie Still. I thought they definitely explored some more dynamics in the songwriting, and it wasn't like just a one-note chug-a-thon, which some of their albums kind of have been, albeit they know how to do it. They are exceptionally brutal. There is really not much in terms of their back catalog that I would not call absolutely savage. But I liked it that their sound was kind of growing a little bit. I mean, as they keep going on, they definitely have experimented a little bit over time. And this one is not without its moments of experimentation outside of the onslaught of blast beats, syncopated chugs, guttural vocals, and stupid heavy breakdowns. Like, they beat you over the brain until you just don't know how to read anymore.
Yeah, and there's 10 songs in here. There are easily probably 60 breakdowns. I counted 5 in Paragon of Purity, the first song alone. Just breakdown after breakdown after breakdown. If you want to hear a breakdown, this record is full of them.
The opening track, honestly, it's almost like a condensed version of a kind of Ingested sound. Like, it is a series of syncopated breakdowns. There's blast beats, there's tremolo riffs, there's some good melodic hooks and like some like more dissonant lead melodies on top.
A little bit.
I do like how the lead melody kind of morphs into a solo for a second, and it's a good catchy riff at the end. So it's kind of everything that they do in one song. They really like to latch on to that mid-tempo sort of syncopated chug, that, you know, kind of slam mosh chug that every meathead in the pit loves. Kind of like Internal Bleeding, like most of their 90s material, except with like a more modern, slick production. And yeah, the production here is kind of about the same as it was in the last one. Like, it's very polished. It is, you know, very, you know, compressed to a degree, but probably compressed in the right way. It doesn't sound bad. It just sounds very modern.
Yeah, the drums are certainly progressed. The guitars have a big, thick, crunchy chug to them. I mean, the bass is fairly present. I don't know if I'd call it warm. It's just kind of there, but you can hear it. Vocally, I mean, he sounds like he did before as far as the mix is concerned, but definitely a lot more dynamic going on there.
Yeah, honestly, I will say that this is Jay Evans' most dynamic vocal performance yet. His flips between his high screams, low gutturals, and then like the uber low gutturals. He's always been good at that. Like, he excels at that vocal range flip, kind of similar to like Svenko from Aborted. Like, he's just got a good flip back and forth. But This one actually throws some different wrinkles that I don't think this band has really explored. It was around the track Star of the Fire that I started to notice there were some cleaner vocals in the background. And I was like, all right, that's interesting. There's not a guest listed on this song. There are some guests on here and we'll get to them. But when you get down to the last track, A Path Once Lost, you hear flat out clean vocals. And I have never heard Jay sing before.
No.
And honestly, he does a really good job.
Yeah, reminded me of a cross between Rivers of Nile and then Andy Thomas's cleans from Black Crown Initiate, albeit not as high, not as high and as clear as Andy is, but it had that same kind of vibe to it, and he did it really well. Like, I was super impressed by that, and I didn't think I would be saying those words in an Ingested album.
Yeah, I've never said those words in an Ingested album because I don't think clean vocals have ever popped up. And it isn't as though the song doesn't have its more brutal, intense moments. Like, it is a damn heavy song, much like every song in here.
Yeah.
But that adds like a whole other dynamic. And honestly, I think that's a dynamic that they could definitely explore more in the future because I think the execution, especially on that last track, was really good.
And that's another thing, too, about those clean vocals is he stays in his register. I think he knows not to venture too far outside of it and just kind of stays low like his voice is anyway, and it really works out.
He pushes it a little bit more when it comes down to like the heavier section on that song, but he's not like trying to really shoot for that super high note. And honestly, that's a good idea, especially if you're just now like including clean vocals into the mix. And there's some other twists and turns on here that I thought were interesting, namely the instrumental Numinous, which is probably the most melodic track. It has a really solid, like just clean lead-in, like really good layered guitars. You get some like synths that sound like ghostly wailing.
Yeah.
It's, very pretty but very somber. And then, of course, this band finds a way to squeeze a breakdown in it, but it stays very melodic. I will say that the synths started getting a little close to that symphonic deathcore sound there, which I'm not the biggest fan of. But overall, I think the melodies that carry it are pretty damn solid.
And then there were a couple more times where it did something a little bit more entertaining. The song Kingdoms of Sand had a really cool off-time groove to it, as well as these neat tremolo tags. And then the song Expect to Fail, which just seemed a little bit more dark and sinister, just had kind of more of like an evil vibe to it, and it wasn't solely breakdowns. Like they packed in a little bit more as far as dynamic was concerned.
Yeah, the main riff that carries that double time groove is awesome. Like, it's just a driving sort of kind of old school vibe to it, like Bull Thrower, Benediction, like just drive forward and conquer. And then when it gets to that breakdown around the chorus, it kind of has a more sinister nature, which about every breakdown on here kind of sticks to that more just straightforward, brutal, knuckle-dragging sound. But I kind of like that one sounded a little bit more, evil. And this band definitely loves a good knuckle-dragging chugathon. Pantheon, in particular, I like that song because it is fast, it is invigorated. There's some more technical riffing on it, but when it comes down to just flat-out brutality, the song is probably one of the meanest on this entire album.
Or a song that Nick and I disagree about, and that's fine. See, it does happen. We do disagree sometimes. Right there.
He's wrong about that.
The song Star of the Fire, I really liked. It's genty and it sounds like Meshuggah, and I get why you may not like it, but I, for a brief time in the period when Gent first came out, really loved Gent, and I love that song because it's genty and I don't care. So
for me, it's just sort of like a stock deathcore genty song. They change around the syncopation a bit. It's a little bit more off time. The riffs are a little bit different overall, which was kind of something that I was kind of begging for a little bit here. But I mean, overall, I don't know. I feel like it was just sort of like them dabbling in, another area that they're kind of closely related to, but
sure.
At the same time, it didn't have much of an impact. And that kind of brings us to the negatives on here. Most of the stuff we have talked about on here are glaring positives, but they are kind of scattered on this album because a lot of this really just kind of stays in its very syncopated, chuggy lane.
I mean, yeah, we're talking, remember in the beginning when I said there are 40 to 50 breakdowns? There are 40 to 50 breakdowns, and most of them are fairly simplistic.
And in the first 3 tracks.
Yep, just a bunch of dun 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 dun,
and then a bleh.
Yep.
It's just kind of basic, and like coming off of their last one where I thought there was like a little bit more experimentation, like right from the rip, this kind of felt very safe. Paragon of Purity is kind of that same repetitive, syncopated chug throughout almost the entire song. Like you get a brief moment of blast, and then you're right back to it. Endless Machine is kind of the same way, where no light shines, mid-tempo, chuggy. They're all kind of interchangeable, and even the breakdowns don't necessarily like stand out. Like when they do like a halftime of that same chuggy pattern,
Yeah.
it feels like it's interchangeable with any other halftime section on this album pretty much.
And to be honest, it makes those first 3 songs drag a lot, in my opinion, because you're not hearing anything different, especially on Paragon of Purity. Like, it just pretty much plays the same breakdown over and over and over again, just in varying tempo shifts. And you're like, come on.
Yeah.
And then Endless Machine kind of follows the same pattern, and so does Where No Light Shines. You're just like, Jesus, I need something different. Play something different.
And, I mean, occasionally they do, like, Starve the Fire while we're kind of, on it. It does break up the pattern, but it's still doing a pattern that is very much been walked by a dozen different bands, and they're really not adding much new to it. Same thing with In Nothingness, too, which I was stoked to hear that one because it has Mark Hunter from Chimera on it. And to its credit, it does have a more, like, metallic hardcore feel. Like, it's kind of got, like, that Earth Crisis stomp.
It definitely sounds like they tailored at least most of that song to Mark Hunter. And it was good to hear Mark Hunter. I mean, I love Chimera. I still love Chimera. And Mark Hunter's been absent for a long time, so I'm going to allow it.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, the song, I don't know, it kind of falls flat. Like, I feel like Mark Hunter's appearance is mostly used in the chorus, and I think he's doing the cleans on it, which I like Mark Hunter's vocals, but his cleans have never been, like, the biggest selling point. It's his growls.
Yes.
His growls are absolutely awesome. So while it does change it up a little bit, it doesn't change it up, like, that much. And a lot of this, it just feels very uneven. Like, parts of this feels like they're really trying to push and expand their sound.
Yep.
And other sections, they feel like they're really just playing it safe. And I don't know, like, all right, 8 albums in their career, you might be at this point where you feel like, all right, we have to appease the old fans, but we also still want to experiment with our sound. So you're kind of walking this very precarious ledge here. If they went full bore towards stuff like the last 2 tracks, I would say, I think that would probably cause a split in the fan base. But at the same time, if you stick with like the kind of rinse and repeat formula that is definitely on display in the first 3 tracks, your fans will probably get kind of tired of it.
Or you're not gaining any new fans at that point. If you're not starting to experiment a little bit more and you don't want to think outside the box, then you're going to be, I don't want to say stuck with all your old fans, because Ingested has a pretty decent following too. Ourselves included.
Yeah,
Again, we've seen Ingested a handful of times, and we like those guys.
Yeah, we met them.
Yeah, we've met them.
And don't get me wrong, I like bands that are very consistent across the board. I mean, we've definitely gone over a lot of them. And I like bands that experiment. It's just sometimes you can hear where the energy is at. And I feel like the energy in terms of like the creative juices flowing or more in the stuff that is a little bit more outside of what they're usually doing. Like, granted, again, they're still mixing in their regular stuff with this more experimental stuff. But it comes across a little bit more fresh sounding when there's other dynamics. And this band, I feel like when they're just kind of doing the basic chuggathons, they're kind of like punching below their weight.
So, overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. I am leaning a little bit more towards 2.5, but I'm still going to give it 3 anyway, because the songs I did like, I really liked. In fact, the moments that I really liked, I liked. Most notably, the last 3 tracks, and then Starve the Fire in the middle there, as well as the instrumental. I really like those, but what takes away from it is it's just breakdown city. And don't get me wrong, I like breakdowns. Breakdowns are what got me into death metal. Won't lie about that. But it's the same breakdown over and over and over again. In the first 3 tracks alone, I counted 11 breakdowns in 3 tracks. And they were all pretty much the same style, just in a tempo shift. That's, I guess, neither here nor there. I don't know. I liked it, but really I would probably skip through a majority of it to get to the tracks I liked, and that's why it's really no more than a 3. It was alright, it was decent. I still really like Jay Evans' vocals. He did a fuck of a job. I'm happy about that. And they are talented musicians, just switch it up a little more, you know? Yeah. If you like Ingested before, you'll probably still like Ingested, and if slam riffs and breakdowns are what you are after, this record is jam-packed full of heavy-ass breakdowns and slam riffs. I mean, really, if you're a fan of really anybody in this genre anymore, even including things like Dying Fetus and Aborted, as well as some newer age stuff, I would definitely recommend checking this out.
Yeah, man, I want to give this a 3, but if I'm being honest, it's a 2.5. It's kind of a letdown from the last one, which, the last one was consistent, I would say, like more so across the board. This one, I feel like when it dragged, it really dragged, but when it got outside of the playbook, which it's like the first page that says chug, 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 and then, maybe a blast beat. Those moments really started to jump out. And I feel, again, like this band is kind of stuck in this position where, like, all right, we have to appease the old fans, and we also still want to be, like, creative and kind of open up what we do. And I feel like they kind of just, maybe compromised on both. And the overall feel is just kind of like an uneven album. Like, the first 3 tracks, I really just couldn't get into. Like, they were just kind of repetitive chugging, and it was just kind of the same chugging each time. Like, a lot of those breakdowns felt interchangeable. Even like the halftime breakdowns that came in, like, you could have like put those in any track. But when you get towards the end of the album, or maybe like the middle too, I would say, like, it does start getting a lot better. And if anything, I think the last 3 tracks in particular are an awesome run of dynamic songs that are different from one another and showcase a lot of cool songwriting that I don't think is necessarily on the rest of the album. And A Path Once Lost, I think, is a huge standout, and way to go, Jay, on the clean vocals.
Yeah. I love that track.
I think that's really good. I also think that that's the song that will probably piss off a lot of longtime fans. Like, what the hell are you singing now? That's not cool.
Right?
That's not slam.
They won't be able to put this record up on No Clean Singing.
Yeah. There we go. You completely lost them there. But honestly, I think it was a good move, and it actually showcased that there's a lot more to this band. So while my review is not as positive overall, I still think there are moments on here that really showcase more of what this band can do in the future. So yeah, it's a 2.5, but again, if you like Ingested, there's still plenty of Ingested on here. Also, like Dying Fetus, again, Aborted, Internal Bleeding, slammy, heavy, chuggy, death metal. This is still pretty much all that, but with some different wrinkles. Check it out. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below, thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel, up on the banner in the bottom right-hand corner. But if you're looking for Thralls Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have shirts there. We have new shirts. We have old shirts that are discounted, provided we have your size, and we even have hats too. So if you're looking for any of that stuff, click the link down below.
And certainly, last but not least, thank you guys. Thank you to all of our subscribers and the people that watch us all the time. We are thankful that you do so. Tons more stuff coming your way between album reviews, discography rankings, states of metal. Is it metal? Is it not metal? Who knows? There are a bunch of things coming, and we do it all for you guys, and we genuinely appreciate you.
Yeah, you guys flat out rule. It's been amazing doing this, and there's a ton more stuff coming in the future. And again, if you guys are going to be in Philly next weekend for the Decibel Metal and Beer Fest, I will be floating around that one, checking out bands and talking to people. So come on up and say hi. And after that, late May, Memorial Day weekend, we're going to be down at MDF.
And we will both be at MDF, and it's going to be crazy like it always is. That's kind of the payoff for us after a long year of reviews and such, and then we go to MDF and enjoy ourselves and
spend way too much money.
Oh my god. Yeah, if you want to send us some money, no, you don't have to. But
in unmarked bills, in an airport locker, in a brown paper bag.
Yeah, if you want to do that, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of shirts.
But yeah, back to the outro. You guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.